Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of JKL Media. We're talking Bly Manor. We're on our fourth episode, and that means we're doing episodes 7 and 8, and they are titled The Two Faces Part 2, which closes the loop for episode 3, which was The Two Faces Part 1. And then we get the romance of certain old clothes. So let's just do top thoughts on these two episodes, and we'll go to our newbie. Jesse, what do you think of these two episodes?
I loved these episodes. I am loving this series. And one of the things you guys had said is that I will be very unhappy at the end of eight because I can't go to nine. And when I finished eight, I sent you an email with the subject line, I hate you both.
Yep.
Uh,
And I
Sorry.
knew exactly what you
Sorry.
meant when I saw it.
the leading lady, which is Mike Flanagan's wife, I'm trying to look up her name real quick,
Katie Seagal.
was my favorite character. There was a
Hmm.
lot of great characters in Midnight Mass, but I
Yeah.
loved that. And so I was a little disappointed that we haven't seen her this season. You realize why he saved arguably the best role for his personal leading lady.
Yep.
Um, and the other thing I had shared with you guys before we started recording is because of circumstances, I had some extra time this week that I usually would have used catching up on either editing podcasts or watching the Hallmark teen movies you get a week during the holiday season. And instead, what I did is
Not hyperbole.
I rewatched one through eight over the past 3 or 4 days so that I'd be ready for this discussion and for number nine. And I will tell you, I understand where Karen's coming from now, where Karen said, I didn't remember the watching it. And then when she watched, she goes, oh, yeah. And boy, am I getting more during a second viewing.
Yep.
This is something that absolutely works well as a second viewing,
Hmm.
and a lot of things that I feel like I almost want to go back through one through six and discuss them again now.
They were,
Well,
Absolutely.
Karen.
yeah, these were amazing episodes. There's an arc to his miniseries. And in this case, it goes up, up, and these two are like at the pinnacle of that up curve. And it plateaus, but it never really takes that dive at the end, even after next week's episode. That's not really a spoiler for you, Jesse, you're assuming. But this is definitely, these are the two at the top for me. The most interesting episodes.
Well, we'll talk a little about eight when we get to it. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I understand that.
And
Yeah.
these are both so full of backstory. I love that we get to see thing, and like Jesse just said, the Two Faces Part Two is really filling in a lot of those things that if you do go back and rewatch, you see them all again clear as day, instead of where you would just overlook them completely on a first watch. Not only does this show benefit from a rewatch, I would say it almost demands a rewatch because it it's so rewarding to
Hmm.
tie all those things back in once you watch it. So yeah, these two are amazing for me.
Yeah, the rewatch really makes the first two episodes much more enjoyable to watch. I think for the first time, like Jesse, I think it's a little frustrating because you're trying to figure out the mechanics of what's going on, and you don't have all the pieces yet. So once you get them, then everything clicks into place. And you go, oh, okay, wow, that really makes those two earlier episodes a lot more meaningful now. I think episode 3, Two Faces Part 1, when we get Danny's flashback or backstory, is what really locks you into the series. Then I think episode 5 with Hannah, I think it's when you start to say, at least I did to myself, say, okay, this is something special. This series has got something really going. And then the episode 7, the Two Faces Part 2, when we get into the whole mechanics of how ghosts can potentially inhabit bodies, is where, especially for the kids, really shines a spotlight on the acting ability of the two kids that are playing the two parts here. Jesse, what did you think of Peter's arc in this episode?
One of the things I caught on the rewatch, he says, I can be very persuasive. And I go, wow, yes, because you convinced that this hawk stupid plan that we could be together forever if you let me kill you so that we can be together,
Hmm.
right? And Rebecca buys this with I don't really, and I think it's vague to me if she totally understood the plan or
She
didn't.
didn't. She didn't.
Yeah, and the idea that he was so cowardly that as she was drowning leaves her,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? He truly is the villain more than, and I realize he's a ghost as well, but he is the true villain in this series to me more than the ghosts.
Hmm.
And he was a villain when he was alive. He was a villain now that he's dead. I don't have any empathy for him.
Wow.
Uh,
Is that a
that
first for Jesse?
it is, I am sorry that he was, and the implication was he was abused, molested as a child. I think
By
what
his
they try to,
father.
Yeah.
and that his father did it with others, like a Sandusky kind of thing. Normally, that absolutely is a horrible thing, but I'm glad he's going back to his hell, that his mother accusing him, not accusing him, but threatening him with blackmail that unless you pay me. And he does not have the moral fortitude to take the consequences. There are often times when I get why people are making bad choices. The Bryan Cranston miniseries that was set in New Orleans, where
The judge?
I, yeah, I think that was it. I don't know if either one of you
Yeah,
watched.
watch it. Or you
His
could do
son
Breaking
makes,
Bad.
yeah, he does. His son makes a very poor decision and they keep making other poor decisions, but the writing is so strong, you understand why they're making these bad decisions,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You go, oh, okay, that's dumb, but I understand why you're choosing to do that, right? Peter, in this case, you're like, whatever the consequences, you just need to move forward. But yeah, he's a fascinating bad guy, and I am worried he is not going to get his just desserts because at this point, when we leave it at the end of seven, because eight is nothing but flashbacks setup, it appears he has the young boy and it's totally 100%. I don't know where we're going, and that was one of the reasons. Like, damn, I want to see what's going on. But yeah, I despise him, and I cannot wait. I think in a couple of months we're going to do the other haunting, and you guys say he plays a very different character, and I hope it's a
Very different.
likable character, so I can go. Though I probably will like, no, I don't trust him. I remember him from Bly Manor. I don't care what you're doing.
He's different enough that you're not even going to associate him, Jared.
But
Karen.
One of the reasons I love that episode and Peter in particular is number one, we do get to see his backstory and his justification for his actions. And I agree with you, Jesse. That is not a good justification, but it is definitely his justification for it. He carries a lot of shame from his past, and that's very common in abused children is they
yes,
carry a
victors. Yes.
lot of shame even though it's not theirs to handle. And I think he just wanted his mother out of his life. So
Yeah.
whatever is the quickest way to get her out that doesn't
Yeah.
make me look bad,
Yeah.
then I'll do it. Instead, he could have just gone to Henry and said, "Hey, look, my mom came back. She surfaced. I want to tell you some things about my past so that they don't come as a shock to you." Because their relationship, I think, was strong enough that he could have done that.
Yes.
But again, we see this deep shame and in his case, and it's not in the exact same way, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Both of his parents are terrible people, and he
Yeah.
was brought up with that as an example.
Yeah.
And I did appreciate seeing, why he becomes how twisted he is. And like you said, the writing's good enough that we understand their motivations. I think the writing's good enough here in this one that we understand his motivations, but we don't sympathize.
Yeah.
We say to ourselves, a lot of people go through that and they're not murderers. So
Right.
there's no justification for what he does, but we see his motivation. And I also think that through Peter, there's different nuances between him and the other ghosts of the manor that they're showing us there are rules for the ghosts at Bly Manor, but also you can affect those rules because Peter is an outlier
And
when it
the
comes to
other,
certain things.
yeah, the other thing is that there is such a glee. I mean, he is so angry, and I may be skipping ahead to Hannah, not to take over the steering wheel, but he is so angry at her that
Yep.
she's breaking the rules. That you change your earrings, you change your clothes. You're so dumb you don't even know you're dead. And then we get the whole Wile E. Coyote,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it is there is such he was happy to kill her,
Yep.
and he was happy to let her know then, oh yeah, by the way, you're dead.
You're an idiot and you're
Yeah,
dead. And I think some of that is projecting because he didn't know he was dead right away.
right.
And he's thinking to himself, I was really dumb for that. So now I'm going to point it out to someone else. You're dumb. It really does show how shallow he is as a character, although there's a lot of depth to him as well, which is a contradiction, but I hope you guys know what I'm talking about there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'll let turn it back to you, Lou.
Okay. Yeah, I just a couple of items on Peter before we move on. I think like his hell situation with the repeating with his mother's visit, I think the touching blow or coup de grace was when he says, "How could you do this to me?" And she says, I don't even know that you're dead." You know,
Yeah,
like that. So he can't even get that satisfaction of telling her off because it's not really his mother. It's just his imagination doing that. And I agree with you that he's the villain of the story, but he's a fascinating one because you look at the guy and he's like the dude's a good-looking guy. He's
yeah,
smooth, and the world was his oyster if he could only get out of his own way. And it's funny that people swear up and down that they're not going to grow up and they're not going to be like their parents. And yet they turn out to do exactly the same. Because the whole thing that he did with Rebecca, like you said, Jesse, was just a chicken shit move on his part.
it's horrible.
Yeah, and it's
The
not
most,
for Rebecca, it's for him. Be alone.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. So just a fascinating, one of the more fascinating bad evil characters that without being like a big overblown super villain is
yeah,
just a really bad person and very believable because I think we've all run into people of that and of a certain type of behaviors and manners that you watch them and say, boy, that guy is just so slick that he just gets away with murder all the time.
Hmm.
So yeah, and
Sorry.
I idolize for it.
I think that he feels entitled to things because of what happened to him as a
Yep,
child.
yep,
yeah.
And I think that's a big thing in real life. I hate people that are entitled,
Hmm.
that feel entitled to things, even down to people in fandoms that are like, you wrote this character wrong. I just hate entitlement. There
Yeah,
are really people like this in the world that,
yep.
absolutely.
So let's talk about Rebecca then, because she's taking the whole thing, and obviously she's only been at it a bit short. I guess there wasn't much time passed between Peter's disappearance and when he started to appear to her. But her, you could look at her and say that maybe she's easily manipulated in that. But at the core, like she really does believe in maybe lofty ideas. She wants to be a barrister. I think she believes in true love. I think she generally looks at the good side of everybody, and that it costs her because she trusts Peter to use her body. But she doesn't cross a line that Peter does. And Karen, let's go with you first this time. I just want to keep Jesse chomping at the bit a bit longer.
yeah, you have to like Rebecca because she does fall in love with this horrible guy, but she also sees that he's a terrible person. Part of her was like, okay, I'll go away with him because I'm in love with him. Let's get him away from here. It's almost self-sacrificing on her part. And she understands what's happening to her now. She's still getting drawn away by these visions or whatever. That might be a mechanism of the fact that she's actually a good person, that she's not willing herself to go into Flora. She's
Yeah.
not inhabiting Flora the way that Peter wants her to. And is that not the sickest thing ever, right? So she's going behind his back a little bit. Peter's bought into this. He's okay with this as long as he's not alone, as long as they can go somewhere, as long as they can be together. I think the minute that doesn't suit his purposes, he doesn't care about Rebecca. But right now, he just doesn't want to be alone. So he's going to use these two kids, even though he was close to them when he was alive. I mean, he's just a terrible person. And then on the flip side of that, we see how Rebecca is going along to get along, as the saying goes. But also, the minute that she has an opportunity to try and do something good, she does it. And that's fortitude, that the minute you can take an opportunity to get out from under this and right the ship, that's what makes a good person. He didn't take that opportunity. There's no skin off his nose. If someone's in his way, oh, let's off him. I don't care anymore. Instead of just dealing with his issues. And again, this is all allegory for real life and dealing with our issues. We fight the monster and all this stuff. But I just feel like Rebecca is someone that would be unsympathetic, I think, because she's in love with this guy. But I really do like Rebecca. I feel pity for her a lot, that she wishes she could go back and make things different, but she's making the best of the situation she's in.
Mm-hmm. Jesse.
Yeah, this is I feel bad for Rebecca, and Hannah tries to talk to her and say, you deserve better.
We do.
And it is, and I was really pleased that she, at least at the last minute, showed some guts and protected the child. She does care about the children and wants to do this. Peter once again can manipulate him. You've seen they lose their faces. Do you want us to become these faceless ghouls? And you could be with your parents in a happy place. And I would like you guys to, as you've seen this, I'm a little bit still confused on the memory, the dream hopping that they do.
Mm-hmm.
How is it controlled? What is it? Is it for what I gather, and I'd like you to correct me, it feels like if you're a ghost, you can do it any time. And if you're alive, it's only when the ghost is possessing you, then you get to go to a different place. Is that the rules, so to speak?
Yeah.
That's open to interpretation. The whole concept of as a ghost, you over time fade.
Okay.
I think that is a conflict between the force of your character from the living world versus the transition that you're making in passing over into the dead world. For some people, that process goes very quickly because they're just very pliant kind of individuals and whatnot. Peter's very focused on escaping, so that's giving him a stronger tie to the
Yeah.
real world. If you die suddenly, like for instance, somebody gets killed and they don't even know it's coming, the chances that those people don't know that they're dead is much stronger than if you've had a long lingering illness, which comes up in the next episode, which is interesting to contrast the acceptance of their mortality depending on the circumstances of your death. So it's a combination of things, but I don't feel the show really locks it down for us. What do you think, Karen?
I think there are some rules that it sticks to. I don't think it contradicts those rules so much, but I do think that there's a gray area. And I think that what they're implying is it has a lot to do with the character
Yeah.
of the person.
Yeah.
So the person can inhabit, so Peter can take over Miles's body and push him out because that's his nature.
Right.
He's evil. He doesn't care about Miles. Leave. But I do think that other people, they won't want to take that action. And even though they can inhabit someone, they don't. So I think that there's a lot of little things there. Do you think that Flora and Rebecca had been doing this the whole time? Because we do see that Miles doesn't have those where he wanders off and walks in his sleep and whatever. So he
Yeah.
accepts Peter. I think that Rebecca and Flora have made an agreement. We don't like what's happening to Miles because of Peter. So let's try and do what we can to subvert that. At least that's the thought I get from it. Flora says, hey, Rebecca and I decided not to merge because we're trying to help you, that Rebecca can inhabit her, and that Flora has actually given her permission, but Rebecca knows that's not what she wants. Let's come up with a plan. And the only way to do that is for me to go inside. I would like to think that Rebecca is using this for good, where Peter is using it for his own ends of not being lonely.
Yeah, I do not know why Rebecca is doing that to Flora, because she ends up going back to where she died, right? She keeps
Mhm.
looking at that. But I guess the question, I didn't ask it correctly,
I'm sorry.
is the reason we see Flora going back to other scenes in her past, it's happening when Rebecca possesses her. And then when she touches her forehead, she sends her to a memory. Is that just a random memory or one she can pick? Do we know, or does it matter?
I don't think we really know. I don't think Rebecca's dream jumping that she has to inhabit Flora's body either.
I get the feeling ghosts can dream anytime. And that's what makes Peter angry, is he only goes back to one memory, while the others, the living, only get the dream hopping when they're being possessed, is what in my mind was the rules.
That's a reasonable explanation.
Sure.
That must have been something with when she was linking with Rebecca, because
Yeah,
as a normal child, why would she do that otherwise?
I do
yeah,
like how different it is, though, where Peter's going back to the thing that essentially killed him.
yeah,
He is being upset with the fact that his mother did this to him,
yeah.
right? So he's just dwelling on that. And we see that Flora is jumping around to touch stones in her life that have
Hmm.
either been interesting or good, or we're
Yeah,
seeing that she can control a little bit what she sees, even though she doesn't know.
yeah.
Okay.
And I take it they never establish why Hannah can touch solid objects, and why the rules of being a ghost seem to not affect her.
Honestly, I just put it down to the fact that it's in whoever's character. She wants to be able to touch things, and so she does.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think for her it happened so suddenly. I just don't like Peter says you don't even know that you're dead. She's trying to work it out when she has those conversations with the cook,
With Owen and
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Owen and whatnot. She's trying to parse it all out, but she just can't quite come to grips with the fact that she's not alive anymore. Probably because she has these longings for her ex-husband or ex-lover who she still thinks
yeah.
is coming back. She's
Hmm.
spent so much of her life on things that haven't happened yet that she can't accept the fact that her time is done.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we'll talk about Hannah because she represents a kind of a sticky logic problem still too, because if she's dead, how is she able to interact with Danny so much during all the other episodes? I guess we'll have to come back to that at the end of the series because that's right now that's a logic problem that hasn't been addressed properly.
do they answer that?
I'm trying to remember.
I just assume that it's the allegory is that you act how you act because that's how you are.
Yeah,
And I would like to think that Hannah is just such a good person that she can manifest these actions. There's always something to do with the character of the person and how they become a
Yeah,
ghost afterwards.
yeah. We
yeah,
all we all create our own personal hell, and
Right,
yeah, and I
that
right.
think,
comes down to
and
character.
maybe that is also where joke, I've never, can you fly? I don't know. I've never tried, right? So maybe she, because she doesn't realize it, her subconscious or ghost is just able to do that. Yeah, and I do love that on the rewatch, it's very clear that she gets pushed down
The
the
well.
well.
Whale.
Yes, and then he we see Miles, oh, she's here, because then he's no longer possessed. So it is very clear on a rewatch that because I had asked, I didn't know when did she die, and you guys told me very clearly. And once I do that, I go, yeah, it's very clear.
You don't see it right up.
And the other thing you don't, at least I did not understand, and we thought is because she can't be dead. Now I know she didn't eat, but she still sits and she talks and she touches, and later she drank wine, right?
And
So
I don't want to bring religion into this so much, but she is religious because she's always in the church lighting candles and all that. And she is able to drink wine, which is another kind of symbol, a religious symbol. So she can touch the candles, she can drink wine.
Yeah. It does make it very sad
yes,
that she, and to be fair, she did not have a chance to tell Owen, let's run off together. She had already died when he offered that.
yeah. So listening to you two talk now, I think the answer for Hannah is she's in such denial of her death that she's able to physically or visibly manifest herself and communicate with everybody because she still thinks she's alive. Because otherwise, there's just no way that, like you said, Jesse, that she didn't eat. And even Danny noted that sometimes she just wandered off and they couldn't find her
Yeah.
anywhere for long periods of time. So I really think that because of the special properties of Bly Manor and the Lady in the Lake that we've seen, and the fact that as much as Peter tries, he can't leave the property of Bly Manor. I think that Bly Manor is like a focal point that allows Hannah to manifest herself visibly, even though she is a ghost during those time periods.
Not talking to anyone.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's that vibe there.
Another thing that benefits from a rewatch, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see he doesn't actually interact with anyone.
So for the kids, there's nothing to say too much story-wise, but I just think that this episode really drives home how well that they acted out their parts up until this episode. Because when the other shoe drops here and you realize why they've been acting the way they've been acting, you go, my God, this could not have been easy for these two actors to pull off these roles. So I'll just open it up to you, Jesse, on the kids. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, really a lot of acting chops.
Yeah.
And you feel for these kids. They've lost their uncle. One of them, we find out, is actually their father, but we don't know that. They don't know that. They've lost a nanny or an au pair, and now they're being possessed by ghosts, and no one's going to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the responsibility because they tell Danny, don't leave your room. Don't leave your room. Whatever you don't leave your room. And they know if they go, because there's this crazy lady that comes from the lake every night, and if you walk where she walks, she will kill you.
Yeah.
Oh, silly children.
Mm-hmm.
So that explains why, and they're very cross with her because she gets up to go in the middle of the night. So that's why they lock her in the closet, right? Because they're kids. They don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later when and this is so well crafted.
Yep.
I understand why you were going, you really need to see this, just because it is just so well done.
Yep. Karen.
Yeah.
Kids.
I would argue that I think that the actor that plays Miles is even better because his mannerisms as Peter are so different from his mannerisms as Miles. You can see them as two different characters. You know exactly when he's being possessed and when he's not. And that is so amazing to me that a kid that young can have that nuanced a performance. I'm not to throw any shade on the actress that played Flora, but
yeah,
he is so dead on his impression of Peter. I'm in awe of both of these actors. And
yeah,
I did laugh a little bit when we started this whole thing, when you're talking about how creepy they were. It's because they were literally these adults in kids' bodies, and they were inconsistent because they were two different people. And I love that you went back and rewatched it because now
Yeah.
you can see the way they were behaving. And in each instance, you can see why now. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
weird, but now I get it. And I love how it creeps up on you in this
Yeah.
miniseries. It doesn't say to you, there are ghosts that can possess people right up
Mhm.
front. It doesn't. So we are lulled into this false sense of security in that, okay, these kids are just weird. Why do I care about him? But then you see later on, wow, that really crept up on me. What a great story beat. And it shows the depth of writing that it's all consistent, but we didn't get it until we put all the puzzle pieces together,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. It's like Knives Out, where
Yeah.
you watch that movie and you're like, okay, I don't understand. Oh, I see what happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really love that part of it. And these kids are just fantastic. I love them so much. And you can see the difference between them two. You can see how Miles always wants to take care of Flora. You can see the love between them and how Flora kind of rebels against this whole inhabiting thing and why Miles buys into it. He wants things to be good for him and his sister.
Hmm.
He wants their parents back. He wants to take that pain away.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of levels in their performance, and I just love them so much.
And Peter is such a manipulator, right? It's the same thing as killing the bird. It wasn't easy. And he's like, no, it's
When he goes
yeah,
into Miles, he reads everything about Miles in his brain and
yeah,
takes it all to hand. And when he gets out, he's, remember that little bird that we killed? Remember that? He uses every bit of information he can take to
yeah,
get his own way.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So the other big thing I wanted to take away from this episode was the whole concept of ghosts and fading, because you were probably wondering why we see these ghostly characters and they have no features. And I think that's a really chilling concept that your personality is having Alzheimer's or something like
Mm.
that, or dementia. It's a pretty chilling image. There's a nice callback to two of the characters that we've seen as ghosts previously, that we get to see them in their younger form. And especially the one in the attic, which at the time just seemed like a random ghost. He just picks up this woman and she's got no features, and then he throws her back to the ground, Peter, that is. So
Hmm.
I thought that was really chilling as well, that whole concept of fading like that as a ghost.
Yeah,
Isn't that something that we're afraid of? One of the reasons we say, why am I here? What is life about? Is because we die and we're worried that our impact will be nothing. Why
We
am
won't
I
even,
here?
and we won't know who we are anymore.
It's knowing that we're going to disappear.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
many levels,
Yeah,
right?
which in a way, ties somewhat into Midnight Mass too, when the girl is talking about, so we are stardust and whatnot. The next episode, the romance of certain old clothes. So, like Karen was talking about how each episode was a step up. I feel for myself, especially on rewatch, episode 8, while very necessary backstory, is the plateau, which is not a bad thing when you're telling a story, that you want to have a plateau before you get to the climax. There's a lot of necessary backstory in here. I find out a lot of good information. I just feel that this is the only episode where I really felt like, because it's set in ancient times, or I don't know, 1600s, 1800s, or whatever, is where the budget of the series showed a little bit, because it felt very constrained in terms of costuming and whatnot, and how many people were about. That doesn't take away from that it sets up the very cool construct of what the Lady in the Lake is about. And the two daughters, Viola and
Perdita.
Perdita, okay,
Mhm.
their whole situation with Bly Manor is interesting, and the relationship between the two is interesting. You could parallel it a little bit as between Peter and Rebecca to a small degree. I don't think because they cross lines at certain points in the story and jump into the other character a little bit.
Perdita. It's an English name. It's also the name of the mother dog in 101 Dalmatians.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You can flip a coin, and Karen, which of the two would you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Viola first.
Okay.
I think she is the thrust of that. And she is essentially behind all of Bly Manor.
Hmm.
And that was her whole thing, is I'm not going to die. And by her will alone, she stays alive. This is tuberculosis or something of that sort. And people didn't live long after they were diagnosed with this. But because of her stubbornness, she stays alive. And that carries over into her death.
Mm-hmm.
She's also just as stubborn in death. And so she ain't leaving. I don't think she is so much as denying her death. She does for a while, but I also think that she's just, I'm still not leaving. No matter what happens, I'm not leaving. And so she is a fascinating character. And it, I would say that we could almost equate her to Peter
Mm-hmm.
because she is very manipulative and she's a product of her time, but she also just doesn't care about her sister. She knows her sister's in love with this guy, but she marries him anyway. And then
Mhm.
she is irrationally angry at her when, after her death, her sister marries her widower.
Mm-hmm.
She's just not a good person. And you can see why she becomes the lady in the lake because of all these things. And I think it really does put a lot of things together for me. I agree with you, though. I think that we can see a lot of flaws in the costuming and all that stuff. It's all dark.
Mm-hmm.
Bly Manor is dark already, but they use the conceit of it being so long ago that there isn't electricity, and that in order to make it so you don't see that it's not like up to par with the other episodes in the series. I don't think it's the best episode in the series, but I think it might be the most important as far as understanding what Bly Manor is all about.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Jesse.
And one of the ghosts in the background that reappears through the series is this plague doctor, and you can see him because of that long mask.
Yeah.
And going back and watching it again and catching some of those freaks me out. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
weird.
Jesse. Viola.
I loved this episode. In fact,
Oh,
I
okay.
would put it my favorite episode of the series.
Hmm,
Wow.
that's
So
cool.
I totally
Good.
disagree with both of you on that. I loved this. It was so gothic
Yeah.
and the idea of I kept thinking of, and I'm going to quote it wrong. You'll be able to correct me.
Yeah.
Right.
And Viola's fury, right? Her
Mm-hmm.
drive.
Did there.
Yeah. And
Drive.
yeah, I adored her in Midnight Mass.
Hmm.
I really like this actress and I want to see more that she does.
She's
You
in the
know,
Haunting of Hill House.
Yep.
yeah, and so much of this was done without dialogue to begin with. But it's such it and I just think the spookiness of right that her sister ends up killing her. It's not mercy. I loved the scene where she wouldn't say obey on the
Yeah.
wedding.
See the stubbornness throughout the
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
and then
refused the last rites.
the last
Yeah.
right, she isn't going to say things. She is going to, and the idea God shouldn't be surprised because that's the way you made her or me, right? I'm fascinated by this character. And I wrote some notes that I thought was so clever that she would sleep, she would wake, she would walk,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? Before
Yeah.
when she was alive.
Yep.
And then stuck in that room, that trunk, she would sleep, she would wake, she would walk.
Yeah.
So clever,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
well written, and over, sleeping, waking, walking. Just incredibly well written and well acted.
And you immediately know who she is in the
Yeah,
present day because of the sleeping, waking, walking whole
yeah.
thing over and over
Well
again.
done. Yep.
Yeah.
It just, yeah.
And Carla nailed it. The narration.
Yeah, I was gonna say Carla, and how do you say her last name?
Gugino.
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 I've already talked about that she was in that TV show Karen Cisco, and
Yep.
there was just a shame that did not take because she's so good in it.
Mhm.
And she's wonderful in this voice that it because she sounds British, she sounds just it's such a great story. This, as I said, I adored this episode just almost as a standalone, just of how this ghost became that was just beautiful.
Mhm. All right.
Do, Do you have any thoughts about our narrator, Jesse?
I have no idea who the narrator is. I know they're in this because when rewatching, they're in California.
Right.
It's supposedly this is haunted, and it seems I don't know if this really happens in real life, but you wish it would, where everyone would be around a
Right?
fireplace
Hmm.
with a tasty beverage and someone
Listening to
telling
someone.
a
Yep.
story.
Doesn't happen
Yeah,
anymore, I don't think.
No.
I do not know who this is at all.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Do you want to continue then, Jesse, with Perdita?
Yeah, and I did feel that I've always said the prodigal son's brother got a bad rap.
Right?
Yeah.
That it, I always think, wait a minute, I didn't go and blow the inheritance. I didn't throw everything. I come back, then you guys act, oh, great, he's gone. And for those of you who don't know the parable, everyone should. When he complains to his father's like, why are you complaining? Because, hey, how about a little
Yeah.
fatted calf for
Where,
me? Yeah.
where's my
Yep.
money?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
exactly. So I felt for the younger sister.
Hmm.
And so now I don't support her killing.
No.
Mercy killing.
Yeah, her mercy killing.
At least that's
Uh,
how she's justifying it to herself. Right.
exactly.
But you understood.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
She's torturing everyone in the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna
yeah,
Yeah.
end this.
hmm
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Carrie?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost the smaller version of Bly Manor. It's the mechanism that kind of allows Bly Manor to be Bly Manor.
Mhm.
And I really, this whole thing about she had all the finest dresses and jewelry and
yeah.
she was hoarding it and hey, give it all to Isabel when I'm dead. And so there's all this avarice tied around it. And the fact that it's what is inside of this chest that is quote unquote cursed, that it's like almost telling us avarice,
Yeah.
this want for material things, it's bad. And it's thrown in the lake because it's cursed. And so now that's where she lives and everything's tied to the lake. So it's really what it's really saying, I think, is that Viola is hoarding everything. She's hoarding the
Yes.
guy, she's hoarding her kid, she's hoarding all her goods and she's hoarding the manor now. And that makes all this evil kind of thing that manifests in Bly Manor, keeping everyone there, hoarding. All the people that die at Bly Manor stay there because she's hoarding everything. She's taking everything.
Ooh.
And I just felt like that was the whole. And so that's why I think this episode was so impactful for me because you just see all of this in this one little thing and you can read into it a million different ways. But ultimately, the basis is it's greedy of her. That's why she is the way she is. That's why she is so stubborn. She wants all her stuff. She wants herself. She wants her kids. She wants her husband. She wants all these goods. And so that's what keeps her. That's why she's stuck there. It's so fascinating to me to see this being used as a device. It's so effective. And using it to say all these really good things that could really be benefiting. If we sold it, we could keep the manor. You know what? It would be better for Isabel if we sold it, if we got rid of it. It's not going to benefit her to just keep hoarding it and then for it to become this evil thing. It was just fascinating to me, and I love the symbolism of it.
Hmm. Jesse, anything you want to add to the chest?
Yeah, I think it is very selfish of her, right?
Hmm.
Because you grand entrance, right? To even look like she had been this wind tossed and all this. So instead of saying, like Melanie at the end of Gone with the Wind tells Scarlett, I need you to take care of out Ashley, she could say that dear sister, We need to keep this manor in the family. So when I'm gone, I need you to marry my husband, raise my daughter to keep our family alive.
Sell them my things, but
Yeah.
no, everything's hers, right?
Yeah, it was all hers. And even when they were, he just kept having to spend more and more money. So I just thought it was really kind of sad.
Mhm.
And all we could do is
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
There's a lot of victims in this story.
definitely.
Yeah.
And she's not one of them,
No.
to be fair.
Yeah. So I really liked the visual of when Perdita opened the chest and the arms came out of the chest, and then they showed it again from Viola's perspective inside of her room, quote unquote room. So I thought that was also really well done. And I guess I do agree with Jesse. Like this is a great episode. As we've
Yeah.
seen in the eighth episode, end of episode seven, we see that Danny is being dragged to the pond, Viola, and then we see the same thing again at the end of this episode. So it's okay. I really want to see what happens there. It's interesting because I remember when I was reading The Dark Tower, and that series went over like 25 years to get all the seven books out. First three books came out and they were following the chronological order of the story, but then book four was a flashback. And it was like 7 or 8 years between the two books. And I'm going, this is a great story, but I want to know what
But
happened to the guys, to the
mhm,
guys. Then they had to wait another 5 years before that book or whatever it was. Thankfully, with this series, it's only one episode to get going again.
I think it's a really good storytelling beat that he put this in near the end where you could have had it right up front, but he
Yeah.
puts it in at the end so that you go, oh my God, I get it now. It's
And
just so
and
cool.
and the nice little touches where you see that the one child with no face that Flora was playing with was the baby that was in the bedroom of her daughter, Viola's daughter, that she thought was her daughter, and that the
Yep.
woman up in the attic is Perdita.
Did you notice? I'm sure you did notice, Jesse, but when Perdita's walking down the stairs and the two paintings are behind her, her sister's face is like a skull or an evil looking face until she turns around and then it's her sister's face again. I just think it's touches like that really delight me.
And I loved, see, to me, and I think is what works for me, Lou, is I knew I couldn't go to nine
Right.
by either
Hmm.
time I watched this. But I loved the first time I watched this, number eight, I go, oh, okay, that's where that ghost was.
Hmm.
And so on the rewatch, I was looking for the ghosts
Hmm.
that to
Yep.
be seen.
Hmm.
And also in the dollhouse, right? You
Yeah.
Yep.
see all those ghosts that on first view you don't catch, but
Yeah.
on a second view you go, oh, she has talismans or dolls
Yeah.
of all the ghosts.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like she's making a diagram
Yeah,
of where
Yeah.
everybody is in the house.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that wraps up these two episodes,
I will watch this as soon as I can.
like right after we
The
finish recording.
it's still early enough that we've got enough time. And I am optimistic. It feels like this guy is a very good storyteller.
Hmm.
And so I have no doubt that um, if they didn't stick the landing, you may not have loved this as much as you did.
Hmm.
So I am curious to see where do our characters end up? What kind of happy ending do we get? The hope is at least we get some sort of resolution. And I am curious on this, the bride and the groom and the wedding party. My guess is they're somehow connected to the other characters, right? That would make sense,
Hmm.
even though she keeps saying it's not my story. I think we're going to end up seeing that. I hope so. It won't bother me if it doesn't, but it feels like this is the kind of show that you would go, oh, and he was the he was dead the whole time, or and it was always
It was
you
all a
were the
dream.
They,
yeah, you were the narrator.
I'm
You're
just gonna,
right.
all I'll say, Jesse, is they stick the landing.
Yeah.
Good,
I don't
good.
want to say anything more because you'll,
Okay.
I
All
wasn't
right.
going to say a
if you
thing, but
watch,
I'm glad you said that.
if I say anything, you're gonna instantly jump on it.
We are at a wedding.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you're
Looking for
Yeah,
happy
for
ever after.
sure. With
And we do
that,
know
yeah.
that the uncle is headed to Bly Manor.
We do know that?
Hmm. He
Okay,
said,
yes, yes,
okay,
because
okay.
fine,
because
I'll go.
Yes,
his ghost told him, what are you going to do? That's
yes,
no,
yep,
there's no power. He says, no, the phone would only ring if there's something. I'm going.
yeah.
I don't know if he is going to be a knight in the shining armor, but at least there is a chance maybe he will be able to exercise his demon.
Mm,
On the rewatch, you do see that when Danny is able to look in a mirror and not see
mhm.
her fiance, it's okay, she's exorcised that demon. I'm really looking forward to seeing the ending.
Okay. We'll just leave it there because I don't
Okay.
I don't want
Yeah,
to
no,
say
I get it.
anything. Alrighty. That's
Yes.
good. I just don't want to.
Nope,
Yeah, I'm glad you're not saying anything, Karen, because I think
nope,
if we say
yep,
one thing now, he's going to.
yep.
I guess the big thing, because the last two episodes, Viola's got Flora by the throat.
Exactly.
Where
And
does that story
we
have to go, but only in one direction?
we've
So,
established that's what she does. She kills them.
yeah.
And a part of me is
And drags them to the chest, right? I mean,
like
that
Peter was dead already. They dragged Peter's corpse to the lake.
she
But
did.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm saying is the Lady of the Lake, she hasn't killed her yet because she's screaming, which is
Hmm.
a little bit of difference because she appears she killed Peter immediately. And I don't know if that's because it was in the house or something.
Never.
It,
That's
yeah,
a
it
Yeah,
good
is.
catch.
yeah.
All
It is
right.
interesting.
Yeah.
You say so many things, Jesse.
Okay.
Okay, so that's episodes 7 and 8, and we have one left, and that is The Beast in the Jungle. So our next episode will cover that, plus we'll have our overall review of the series. That's right. If you really like Carla, you'll really enjoy her in The Haunting of Hill House. She
Yeah.
has a very
Okay.
big role in that.
Yep.
I love that actress.
Reminds me a
Yeah,
little bit of Lita.
Lita. So
Yeah.
we'll see next episode or next
Yep.
series.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, Jesse, if people want to contact you, where would they go?
You can find me at Jesse Jackson DSW on Twitter, aka X, and on Blue Sky. You can find me talking music on Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where we just finished 30 Days of Springsteen. I did 30 episodes in 30 days,
And
taking a
your
break.
hair is burnt at the ends from
Yes. But I'm still doing new episodes, just probably maybe only one a week for the month of December to take a little bit of break. Um, and we continue to do Perfectly Good podcast, which is John Hyatt, alphabetical order. Sylvan Groth and I are continuing to have a lot of fun for that. And we are wrapping up Last Best Hope for Conversation, which is the sister sibling podcast of this one, where we're going through Babylon 5, and we are in season 5, and we are hoping that they stick the landing as we finish up this science fiction series, which just moved to Amazon Prime.
Oh,
and also on my hard drive.
okay. Here.
Yeah, you can email us at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. And I am at Oliveria on social media, and my blog is alistuff.com.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And
Let me also add, I have a links page as well, and it's alistuff.com/links. And there are links to all of our social media accounts and other things that we've mentioned over the course of the podcast. If you just want to go to that, that's alistuff.com/links.
awesome. All right. And as for myself, you could find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where our flagship series, Jesse's already mentioned, Babylon 5. This is our sister podcast. Haunting of Bly Manor is our 20th item that we've looked at. And interestingly enough, our first one was Midnight Mass, where we introduced Jesse to Mike Flanagan for the very first time. And it's taken us 20 to get to Bly Manor. I think we had mistakenly thought that Jesse had already watched The Haunting of Hill House, but we're going to hopefully rectify that in the future. They're all separate. We've done other things there: Stagecoach, The Peripheral, Quester Tapes, Green Mile, V for Vendetta, Barbie, We Are the World, Springsteen Dark Western Stars, Dark Matter, the book, not the series. I've started watching that and I have to get back to it. I haven't finished it. Station 11, which is a fantastic series, and Devs, also a very good pick by Karen. So there's a lot of stuff there for you to check out, and hopefully that you'll take the time to do that at some point in the future. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, Sytsma, and also the same handle on Blue Sky. And with that, we end our recording, and Jesse's going to rush out and watch the finale of Bly Manor.
Yep. Aren't
Take
you?
care, all.
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
I
Take care, all.
absolutely.
And see.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.